Hey you guys, today we're going to be learning about binomial nomenclatures and also kingdoms. So if you recall from our last lesson, we talked about taxonomy and we were naming the hierarchies of life, right? So we had used this phrase, King Philip came over for a great soup, which was kingdom, phylum, class, order, family, genus, and species. So we can see it here. We also have domain at the top here. And then we're going to be talking about the kingdom. So everything is organized into 6 kingdoms. So, like I said, binomial nomenclature means a 2-name system. So bi means 2 and nomial means name. So they're very particular about how you write this. They're very, very finicky. So they use the last two spots on the taxonomy chart, right? So it's genus and species. So the genus is always going to be a capital letter. And the species is always going to be a lowercase letter. And then it either has to be underlined or italicized. You can't have all of it. So if we look here, here's some examples. So we have Canis familiaris, which is a dog. So Canis is the genus, and it's capital. And this one is the species, so it's a lowercase. Now notice with the wolf, I have Canis lupus, right? And Canis, they're in the same genus as the dog, but they are in a different species, as you can see. And in this case, they're underlined because they are, and up here it's italicized. So you can see how that varies. Okay, so here we're going to watch a video about this, and we can see this fly is named after Beyonce.
Once upon a time, there was a frog and a fly. But this is not the beginning of a fairy tale, or the tale of how these two animals got their names. Their scientific names, to be exact. You may have noticed that animals have different names in different languages. For example, the word for dog is Hund in German, Chien in French, and Go in Mandarin. So to prevent any confusion when scientists around the world talk to one another, they use a system to give all species of animal a unique scientific name. When a new animal is discovered, it is given a new scientific name. Scientific names are made up of 2 parts, the genus and the species. This is why scientific naming is also called binomial nomenclature, the bi representing the fact that the name has 2 parts. The first part of a scientific name is the animal's genus. The first letter is always capitalized. Species that are most closely related belong to the same genus. For example, the first part of the scientific name of a dog is Canis. Other animals belonging to this genus include wolves and dingoes, meaning that dogs are closely related to these animals. The second part of a scientific name is the species. This is always written lowercase. The second part of the scientific name of a dog is Lupus familiaris. A scientific name is always italicized. When it is handwritten, it is underlined. When a new species is discovered, the scientific name can be descriptive of the animal, which is the case for this frog and this fly. The fly was named Scaptia Beyonce, after Beyonce, because of the golden hairs on its abdomen. The frog was named Hylocertus Prince Charlesi, after Prince Charles, because of the charity work he funded to protect the rainforest where they are found. Lots of scientific names have been inspired by celebrities or famous characters. What's important in this tale is that with their unique scientific names, these animals can be referred to scientifically ever after.
Okay, so that kind of gave you an idea. You know, how interesting is that, right? That Beyonce would have a fly named after her. Who knew? Okay, so now we're going to do this fill in the blank. So what we have here is, we just kind of talked about this. We went over that taxonomy, and we're filling this in. So remember, our sentence that we were using to help us fill this in was, King Philip came over for good or great soup. So you're going to fill these in. The next one is, which two groups are used for an organism's scientific name? So from this order above here, which two are used for the scientific name? So we just kind of saw a video on that and everything. And then, which of the following pairs is most closely related? So again, you're going to look at this, and these are scientific names, right? So you're going to look at the genus and the species to see what is more closely related. Is this more or is this more? Okay. And then the next one is the system used for naming all this is called, these guys, the blank nomenclature. And then the last one, the science of classification, is called blank. So I'll give you a hint. It starts with TAX. So you're writing this down on your worksheet. Alright, so now we're going to be talking about the kingdoms. So there are currently 6 kingdoms, and all of the organisms on Earth can be categorized into these 6 kingdoms. So they're based on certain criteria to be in each group. So it's the number of cells, meaning is it unicellular or multicellular? How it obtains energy, meaning is it an autotroph, where it makes its own food, or is it a heterotroph that has to eat food? And what type of cell? Is it a prokaryote cell with no nucleus, or a eukaryotic cell with a nucleus and organelles? So these are different ways they're going to categorize these. So our first one is going to be kingdom Archaeobacteria. And the thing about this is it's extreme. So when we look here, this bacteria is extreme, meaning it can only exist in extreme environments, freezing cold or extremely, extremely hot, where if you put your finger in it, you would burn your finger. And they're unicellular, and they can be autotrophic, meaning they make their own food, or heterotrophic, meaning they eat food. They're prokaryotic cells, meaning they don't have a nucleus. So they're just, DNA is just in there. Remember, it's circular DNA twisted up and just hanging out in there. So they call it Archaeobacteria because it's ancient bacteria. This was probably the first bacteria ever on Earth. And it exists in these extreme environments, right? So just think, Archaeobacteria is extreme. Alright. So next we have kingdom Eubacteria, and the difference is this one isn't extreme. This is, again, unicellular. It can be autotrophic or heterotrophic, meaning it makes its own food or it consumes its own food. And they're prokaryotic cells, just like the other one. They do not have a nucleus, so here you can see this is a prokaryotic cell. And most of these are going to be bacteria, like E. coli and salmonella and stuff. But they do not live in extreme temperature. They would die. So they have to be in more of a controlled environment. Then we have kingdom Protista, and these are mostly unicellular. And again, they can be heterotrophic or autotrophic. But these guys are eukaryotic cells, meaning they all have a nucleus and organelles. So an example would be an amoeba, which is here, and most of these guys live in water, paramecium also, and they have a nucleus and organelles. So like if we went to Lake Austin and got a water sample from the lake and looked at it under a microscope, we're going to see these guys in there. We can't see it with our naked eye because they're microscopic, but this is what you're going to see if you put it under a microscope. So then we have kingdom fungi. So we remember our good old fungi from ecology, remember? So an example of this are these mushrooms here. So they can be multicellular, which most of them are, because it takes a bunch of cells to make a mushroom. And they're heterotrophic. And they're heterotrophic because they're decomposers. Remember, they're eating dead things. So, yeah, they don't produce their own food. They eat dead things. And they're eukaryotic cells, meaning that they have a nucleus, they have organelles, so they're that more complex cell. The next one we have is kingdom plants. So these guys are autotrophic, meaning they make their own food through the process of photosynthesis. And they are eukaryotic cells, again having a nucleus and the organelles. And remember, the plant cell has three things that the animal cell does not have, which is the cell wall, chloroplast, and a central vacuole. So it has those three things in addition to being a plant cell. So next we have kingdom Animalia. And these are multicellular. They're heterotrophic. They must consume food. So you can see in these pictures, they consume food and they're made of more than one cell. They're eukaryotic, meaning that all their cells have a nucleus and organelles in them. And some examples would be birds, insects, worms, mammals. So here, these guys are mammals. And humans. We are part of the kingdom Animalia. I think that's the funniest picture. Okay, then we go into the domains. So this was like a new thing that scientists added, the domains. So these would cover the kingdoms. So we have domain Eukarya, which includes organisms that are made of eukaryotic cells, right? So the plant cells, the animal cells, the fungi, the protista, they all have a nucleus with organelles in them. All right, and then we have domain bacteria, and these are all the prokaryotic cells in kingdom Prokarya, and they do not have a nucleus, right? And they're just living their good life. And then we have Mr. Extreme here, domain Eukarya, and this includes the ancient bacteria, Archaeobacteria, and they live in those extreme environments. So they get their own little domain. And this is just a funny thing. It's like, talk about, taxonomy failure. Found cat and it's a possum. Male, no collar, not very friendly. I think he might be scared. Not housebroken either. Found on Sunset Boulevard. If he is yours, please call. So that's kind of funny. So they got it completely wrong. All right. Well, you guys have a great day and submit your notes. Bye.